Hey, this video is a response to Richard Lee, to you, Richard. I'm going to enter your contest, and I want to congratulate you for receiving 130 subscribers, many more to come. Really, thank you, Richard, for just connecting. You know, you're someone I would like to meet, and it's just so obvious that we have a vibration, you know, a parallel, a common. It's like, again, as you said, you just kind of came across me, and to this day, all I'm doing is over here just doing what I do, being me, talking about, you know, talking and being myself. And music is central to my life, and it's very important to me, and obviously to you. With that said, I'd love to hear some of your work. I don't know, I haven't really investigated, I'll put it that way too, you know. I haven't really looked at your Facebook page to look at your background much, so I don't know if there's recordings that you play on, but I get the sense that you're probably good, you know. Your taste in music, you know, there's many parallels, and I'm not saying it to compliment myself, you know. I know what I like, you know, and we have a lot of similarities, you know, the good shit, you know. Thank you, you know. And you know, it's such an honor to be able to share my music and to find people that really vibe with it. So watching your video and hearing my music in the background, it's awesome. With that in mind, I wanted to kind of try to address your questions, and I think I'll start with this, because this is my second attempt to make this video, because I lost my train of thought in the first one. You know, you wanted to know about music. I'll get to the soundtrack, but I'm going to go to question number 2 first, because it's on my mind. You wanted to know about music that changed your life beyond just music, and I've talked about the Beatles, and it really did change my life. I mean, completely, when I experienced the Beatles, as well as the music, the way it played in my life afterwards. But I wanted to try to share, and I lost my train of thought, and then I had to stop and look back and then write down what I wanted to say. But one of the things that happened in my life through watching the Beatles, particularly on television, Ed Sullivan and stuff, and those TV appearances, and the way the audience reacted, and because I was a child, I was really oblivious to the sex appeal thing. It was I thought they looked cool, but the thing that I was really getting strongly is the music, and also the instruments, and that impact, you know, that combined impact, you know, the visual. It made me, it didn't make me, but I started to fantasize, I think like many other kids, what it would be like to have my own version of fame, my own version of celebritydom, based on people's response to my music. Back then, as a child, I wasn't making any except in my head. Also, due to the fact that it was, you know, the time, and being, you know, a black kid, it was already in my mind pretty clear that I couldn't be famous like the Beatles in the world the way it existed. And so I came up with, you know, fantasies that were possible. And I was just saying this to my sister, you know, that my older brother and I, and even my younger brother, we used to have these made-up fantasy identities and this made-up world, which I think is how we were able to be, you know, mentally halfway well, you know, in South Omaha, which is extremely racist, you know, cruelly so. I mean, you know, physically we were attacked. But one of the things that, I'll turn this down, listening to Fred Frith, by the way, Technology of Tears, but So we would fantasize about the world, you know, and make up just, you know, all sorts of far out things. And I could see the internet in a different way as a kid in my mind. I mean, basically that's what we have now. I saw it in my mind in a different way, but it would be like where you could, a picture would come to life, you know, and then it would be real time, which, so anyway, what I'm saying is that the connection with you, Richard, and I'm speaking to you directly as well as whoever else is watching, but specifically to you, Richard, the way that you connected to me through this medium, and it's about music, and eventually it ended up including my music, is the dream actually come true in my life of what I saw in my head as a kid. I'm not famous like a Lady Gaga, which I don't want, but do I have, for my own purposes and in my own definition, do I have success? Do I have fame? Do I have a certain, can I claim a certain amount of celebrity? I really can, you know, and this VC connection is part of that reality, you know, and so that's partially, I think, answering your question. And I didn't grab it, but I don't have a copy of Meet the Beatles actually anymore on vinyl, but that was the first record. I've got some early Beatles records I could have shown. I've got some singles, but I do want to continue a little bit longer and share another record that changed my life, kept me alive actually, and I think I've talked about this partially before, but I'll talk about it more now. Days of Future Past by the Moody Blues. This album literally kept me alive. I've had a few actual suicide attempts where I actually, you know, cut myself, overdosed. Another time I ran out into traffic. That one is quite a story. That was it's one of those deals where someone was sent to you saying, nah, you ain't gonna do this, dumbass. It's not time. But when I first heard this on the radio, and I heard it on FM underground radio in Omaha, of all things, for a short time, we were getting, I think, these tapes from the West Coast, or some kind of feed for a while, when I was about 13, 14 years old. That's how I first heard Pink Floyd. I think Candy and a Currant Bun was the very first song I heard by Pink Floyd. That's where I first heard Freak Out by the Mothers of Invention, and I was just 13, 14 years old. I just loved the music right away. That's where I first heard this. That's also where I first heard some music I've still not heard since, that I'm hoping that I discovered. You know, Out of Focus seems to be this band, possibly. I've not heard all their records. That seems a real good possibility. I thought it was Magma for a while. It was just amazing what I heard. But anyway, without getting too maudlin, I come from a family of 5 kids. I'm the middle kid. I live in a red state of Nebraska. You know, coming up in the 60s. It's still extremely close-minded here in Nebraska. I mean, you know, you can make your own way here, but part of the territory here and part of the status quo way of thinking here is still white and racist. It is, you know. I'm not... there's nothing to quibble about. I'm living here. I'm telling you, that's the truth. And so as a result, you know, my self-esteem and ability to see myself as a whole human person has been challenged from day one. And I remember when I first, I think it was about the time that I started going to, this came out in '67. I'm trying to place, because the main thing I can tell you is this, is that one real bleak period of depression where I cut myself and contemplated some other things. This album, the beauty of the music, the words too, but it was a combination. But the orchestra, which again to some people is kind of saccharine, to me it was just what I needed. It was so comforting. It was beautiful, but it was also, there was this melancholy, and it just started to help me to think differently, because I was really thinking that even, I'm thinking of this is about when I was 14, that, well, there's really no reason for me to live, because the only thing that I'm around is to help people. You know, it seems like I don't have much value to others except what I can do for them. This is before I realized that you have to value the self, you know, and have your own platform to stand on. I was still caught up in and not fully understanding that Bible teaching is to do unto others as you would do unto yourself, and to put others before you, you know. I didn't fully understand that you have to help yourself before you can help others. And so I was a kid, I was expecting, well, I'll be nice and I'll do all these nice things and people will be nice to me. And that happened to a degree, but there was also quite a bit of abuse, and just people can be so cruel in little ways, and seeming little ways that hurt deep. And Richard, I know I'm certain you know what I'm talking about. The other people know what I'm talking about. Those little ways that, not only the ways that kids can be cruel to each other, you know, just little pranks that we would do to each other that scar you for life. And your friends or the other kids say, I was just playing, I was just kidding. And it stays with you till it's still with you now. And the same is true from things from adults as a kid. And you know, I shut down early as a kid performing for people, because I did not like that attention. You know, it was like, you know, it was apparent that I had talent musically, but the way that it felt, the way that people wanted you to perform for them was like a little monkey on a string. Do that again. Oh, you're such a nice boy. I did not like that, you know. And it stays to this day, you know. It's like I've always needed to be pleased and satisfied personally with what I'm doing musically before I present it to others. And that's a real important part. That's why I don't entertain to please, and why sometimes I'll be kind of crabby and shitty and will close up rather than open up, because people will say, hey Derek, we'd like to see you, and I'll just say, no, not today, because I don't want to do a Bobby McFerrin. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Don't worry, be happy. You know, that's the bane of his career. It made him, but if that happens to me, it will happen by happenstance. And I don't want an albatross around my neck that pays me, but that I'll hate because it's so trivial. People trivialize you, you know. Even now, all along I experience it. Richard, you asked, you know, to know personally, and I'm just going to keep going. You know, music is very important to me, and, you know, I do take myself seriously and also with a grain of salt. But when I don't vibe with how I think people see me, I'm just going to stand with it, because I'm not a Bill Cosby, and I'm not, you know, and some people, I get that vibe from people, you know. I know it's because of popular culture that you have these touchstones that people have, you know, but some of them it's like, I'm not going to be that for you. And, you know, when I get the vibe from people that they're sort of expecting that, it's like, oh, hell no. You know, I'll say it, me first. And all of that really comes from surviving, you know, several suicide attempts. Moody Blues have been very important along all their albums. To Our Children's Children. Some of the messages of those songs just extremely important to my life, you know, as far as helping to make clear about values, you know. It's like there's a whole lot of shit about society that we hold onto and live by in order to live together. But there's a lot of essential things that I think a lot of people take for granted are reality, that I say no, it's arbitrary shit that we've decided as societies, and I think it's bunk. And so in my own mind, I'm free. My code, and I'll just lay it out because it's very simple, is because it's based on reality, what's happened to me, which is, you know, my bottom line is, in my mind, I'm free to think and see exactly what I see. What the world needs from me is, number one, is to not be like a wildebeest, or like, you know, an animal of prey, where I just go about blindly smacking the world upside its chops, getting what I want, doing what I want. In other words, my foundation is, don't consciously harm other people. You know, that's real clear to me. That seems like that's a real clear way to just have a real basic foundation, which is, in all actions, you know, be honorable to the self and to others, you know, which means you're not going to consciously try to hurt people, take advantage of them, try to coerce them, try to manipulate them, try to brainwash them, try to make them do something against their will because you want something, which is how things are done in this world. You know, I've just always been and continue to try to refine this idea of living with the flow, you know, trying to feel life and situations as they're going down, and to try to coexist with everyone in my proximity as flow as possible. I mean, conflict is inevitable, but you see what I'm saying. And this all music has a lot to do with this way of seeing the world and how trying to live. And back to your question, you know, the Moody Blues in Genesis, Lamb Lies Down, that album, it just came at, and Selling England by the Pound, these records just came at such important times for me. The music, number one, but then the words, this one word-wise, really, you know, just helped me a lot. But musically, you know, there was a time when I could not listen to this without weeping, especially Cinema Show to Isle of Plenty. I couldn't end it without being in tears, and it didn't matter who was around. I can remember times I just bust out in front of strangers because it's playing. It just, this music has been helped to guide me on a life philosophy, as opposed to a band like the Rolling Stones or even Lou Reed. Those people weren't showing me how I want to live, you know. Man, if it's not more clear now about, you know, what the music is about to me, then I don't know what else I can say. Rock and roll and being able to rock and all that is important to me, and is really important to me. But I could tell early on, you know, looking at people, being interested in people and personality and understanding what's really happening in life and with people, that folks like the Rolling Stones, like Mick Jagger and Keith Richards in particular, were like, these folks I wouldn't want to spend time with. They ain't showing me nothing that I haven't already seen, that I know better already, you know. And I'll say it like that, you know. Even in the Beatles, as much as John Lennon was talented, I could see that he was just, you know, that man was lost, you know. I've always related to George Harrison, and I still do, and accurately so. You know, George was a flawed human being. He had a spiritual side, but as people who know him, he could be a cold motherfucker, and I can too, please, you know. You know, it's like, it's again why I always take off the thumbs up, thumb down thing, because it's like, if we're in person and I can see what I'm dealing with, then I know what I'm dealing with. But this anonymous stuff makes me crazy, you know. And it's like, anonymously, if somebody steps to me a certain way, it's like, well, there's no way I'd be having that in real life, you know. And I'm not a man of violence, but I'll tell you what, don't, you know, like George Harrison, you know. Peter Gabriel's another person that comes to mind, but George Harrison, really, it's like George Harrison, he had that spiritual side, which was real. But as you know, he wouldn't suffer no motherfucking fools, okay? Richard, you wanted to know, I'm giving it to you. This will probably go up. It's 20 minutes now, so, you know, I don't know when I'll get this on. Maybe it'll be on by Tuesday. Okay, soundtracks. Richard, I've always loved soundtracks, but I've never consciously collected them. I have some. Some of my favorite soundtrack music, I don't even know the names of it. There's a film about a boy visiting Africa, and it's by Francis Lai. I can tell you that much. The soundtrack, "Visit to a King's Son," possibly. What am I just? It's just something wonderful about it. I have where when I first got a videotape machine back in the '80s. It took me forever to be able to afford one. I'd be watching TV and I would hear music I really like, and I would just record it just because I'm hearing music I like. I wouldn't even really care about the movie, and still I can't tell you what the movie is. But some soundtracks that are in my soundtrack spot. Let me pull. I love soundtrack music though, and so I can include myself. You know, Flyover Country, my very first soundtrack, original score. It says it right there on the front by yours truly. Still on cloud nine about it, and so are the film directors. We're all extremely happy at the reception. It was a great weekend. I don't even have all the numbers. I'm not a numbers man. That's not what's important. The glow and the vibe from the Flyover Country film premiere is an extreme thumbs up. Fantastic. But some soundtracks that I have here, and let me show some that I'm familiar with, is The Mad Adventures of Rabbi Jacob. I have this because it's by music by Vladimir Cosma. He's someone who I can name as a soundtrack composer. I love his work. Vladimir Cosma. And Ennio Morricone, Una Vita Venduta. Morricone, what can you say? Rampage and Ennio Morricone. I wish I had more Morricone. Here we have Maurice Jarre, Witness, Jean-Michel Jarre's father. The soundtrack to El Topo on Apple. I love this soundtrack. Follow Me. Let's see. Stu Phillips. This is great. On Uni, and Dino Desi and Billy are featured on here. This one is great. One I got from John Coltrane, 68, Diva. Another one by Vladimir Cosma. This is fantastic. Good film too, but the soundtrack is just awesome. Tony Anthony's Come Together, another on Apple. So those are just a few soundtracks I can show you. I love soundtrack music. I hope I didn't forget anything. I'll tell you this, I looked at your prizes, and one of your prizes, I won't say which one, but you're offering a prize that is a Grail want of mine on vinyl. Seems like I had a copy, lost it or sold it or something. There's a copy of it in town, but it's not in as good a shape as the one that you showed. So you have something that I really want. I would love to win. I'm just going to be upfront. You have some records I want. Ulver, I'll say that's, wow, Ulver. I've never seen any Ulver vinyl in Omaha. Probably because I'm late to the game and whoever knows about them always gets it. Congratulations, Richard. And I feel your heart, you know. And I feel like even though we haven't really met, you're my friend.